Cricket et al. It's a website. It's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
Bit of Lara over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast. Reached the sharp end of the season in Australia, the dawn of the new season in India. And to talk us through the overlap, Pete and I are going to do a survey of what's happening in cricket. Let's start at home, Pete. Let's start at home with the traditional Sheffield Shield final, which starts tomorrow at Karen Rolton Oval between South Australia.
Is it a tradition?
Well, it's since 1983. That's long enough.
Yeah, that's long enough, yeah.
43 Sheffield Shield finals. It's only been won by the away team 6 times, so Queensland have got a mountain to climb.
There is the players seem to like it. They seem to think, it's as close as you get in sort of Shield cricket to a Test match, I guess. And there is a bit of excitement around this game. I mean, it's a pretty interesting match.
Well, when a team's gone so long without getting there, as is the case with South Australia, it's also 30 years, of course, since Queensland won their first Sheffield Shield in a Sheffield Shield final against South Australia, actually at the Gabba. So there's a bit to it. There's a bit of texture to the rivalry. And there's been, well, you're writing a preview, I know, at the moment, but we've been some fantastic publicity for the Sheffield Shield final from Usman Khawaja in Queensland cricket over the last week, which you also reported on, Pete.
Oh, it was an irresistible story, Gideon. It's not often you see an elite state coach celebrate his side making the final by coming out and just dumping a bucket of shit on his senior batsman.
So what happened here? So Khawaja comes back from Sri Lanka. He's got some tenderness in his hamstring, which he discusses with Nick Jones, the Aussie physio, and George Bailey, the Australian chairman of selectors. He has a fitness test with the Queensland physio Stephen Timms just before the Tasmania game, and says he can only run at 70%. But he played and he makes 100. Geez, I wish I could make 100. Running at 70%.
Yes, he was turning threes into twos, he said.
He was turning threes into twos. He would have made 300. Would have been another 232. He would have resulted in another Cricket et al. T-shirt if he'd been at full fitness. So is that right? He contacts Nick Jones and he contacts Bailey and he says, "Look, Hammy's not great. So maybe I should miss the next game." And he texts Johan Botha, the Queensland coach, and said, "Well, we don't actually know what he said, do we?" And
no.
Does he say?
You're more, yeah. Well, and he reported on the on their welfare app or
on
whatever,
their AMS, the athlete management system. So I do think that. So he said in that presser last week, I texted Johan Botha and let him know I didn't really get a reply. Now, did he get a reply or did he not get a reply? We don't really know.
We don't really know. No.
We don't even know if Botha got the text because it wasn't acknowledged. But so he says after that, I assumed everything was fine. That seems amazingly casual for top-level sport, Pete. I mean, it's almost amateurish. I think if you're a club captain and your main batsman just texts you and says, "Oh, my hammy's a bit sore," What would you make of that? You'd probably ring them back. So maybe Johan Botha should have ring him back. But it seems weirdly ambiguous, doesn't it? About his status. He's discussed it with the Aussie physio, but he hasn't discussed it with his coach nor with his captain. Probably not. He's
told him he's injured. Look,
but he played in the previous game injured. So
he had at 70%, and then he says, and you have to take him at his word, that the hamstring flared up, and the anti-Khawaja camp roll their eyes and say, well, it was conveniently flared up before you got to go down and hang out at the Formula One Grand Prix. I don't know. I'm not as surprised by the poor communication because we went through this earlier in the year with Adam Zampa. Do you remember that strange little story about Adam Zampa? Is he available? Is he not available? Has Cricket New South Wales been told to play him? Not told to play him? There's a genuine communication issue, isn't there, between the states and Cricket Australia? I mean, the states, New South Wales was adamant, or parts of New South Wales were adamant, that they'd been told to play Zampa. Then, and then they were told they weren't told to play Zampa, but nonetheless he plays. Then he doesn't appear the next game.
No.
I asked New South Wales and I asked Cricket Australia repeatedly, different people, and cannot get a straight answer from anyone.
Interesting.
It's just bullshit, I mean, I reckon the Yarra's probably more aware of who's where and who's ready and who's going to play this Saturday than sometimes the states are.
Well, a bit more right for us, because if we don't have 11 guys, we're playing with 10 or even 9.
Yeah. But clearly, there's a new regime at Queensland, isn't there? Like Joe Dawes has come riding into town.
Mm-hmm.
I hear from Usman's camp, not from Usman, but that he has got a few players' noses out of joint with his and Boda's attitude. The new cop in town is a phrase he's fond of, and he has, as you pointed out earlier, has every right to use it because he is a former Queensland policeman and colleague of the venerated Peter Dutton, opposition leader here. I think there's a feeling among that group that Queensland cricket was drifting, and that Usman is the talisman of that. Usman is the issue here, and Usman's attitude. But that's no way to handle it, Gideon. That's an appalling way to handle a situation like that. First, Dawes got the facts wrong and said that they didn't know he was injured, and it appears that they do know he was injured.
Was he injured? Was he actually injured, or was he managing an injury? Because as we all know, this was about preventing an injury.
Well, if you're managing an injury, you're injured. You've got to have something there to manage.
But you are trying to prevent an injury. You're trying to prevent the aggravation, the worsening aggravation. And he had played at 70% fitness in the previous game.
Yeah. He had, and then said that it got worse and didn't want to play the next game. So
then Usman comes out and at a press conference, a rather emotional press conference, he was
emotional, wasn't he?
He was. He was
quite upset. Yeah.
He describes Joe Dawes as his best mates with Peter Dutton. Is that actually true? Is he best mates with Peter Dutton? Did anyone inquire what the relationship is between Peter Dutton and Joe Dawes? Is it even relevant? Apparently, Dawes worked on Dutton's staff in 2021 when he was Defence Minister. But does that make him Dutton's best mate? Did anyone try to get to the bottom of that professional relationship, or did they just publish it? Anyway, it's possible.
It's not really the issue, though, is it? Whether he's best mates or not. No.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. It was a brilliant piece of distraction. Now, it's possible for all these things to be true.
It suggests that the divide is not only philosophical, it's political, doesn't it? Because Usman is anything but politically aligned with somebody like Peter Dutton.
Yeah.
Who's essentially proven himself to be a sort of anti-immigrant and sort of anti-refugee as well, which are two causes pretty close to Usman's heart.
But it does seem like a very, very strange thing to happen in allegedly top-level sport. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing on the eve of a final, and this is a very significant game for both Queensland and for South Australia. It could define their seasons.
Yeah, I think it's a real own goal by Joe Dawes. Whether you have sympathy with his position or not, that was not the way to handle it. You do not make a public spectacle on the eve of a Shield final, and a day after you've got in by the skin of your teeth to that final, and you better have your ducks in a row if you're going to come out and make allegations like that.
But I also think if you're a highly paid professional sportsman, you actually owe your setup a little bit more than a casual text of indeterminate nature. I can't say anyone's covered themselves in glory here.
No. I do have some sympathy with Usman's position. Usman goes, okay, I've got 10 first-class games left in me. I'd prefer to play 7 of them for Australia and 3 for Queensland or whatever, balance it out that way. It was a terrible look for Usman to be at the Grand Prix. You know, that annoyed people. But why is Usman copying it for being at the Grand Prix when Nathan Lyon was similarly there and similarly absent from his side's attempts to make a Shield final?
I didn't know that Nathan Lyon was at the Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good for him. Well, okay.
He's looking very stylish these days, Nathan.
He's looking quite natty, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, what can we look forward to in the Shield final, Pete?
Well, was it 29 years since South Australia won one?
Yeah.
Did you see that photograph?
I did.
That Lehman is the only person with a connection because was sitting on his dad's knee when his dad celebrated the win, which is pretty good. Been a very good servant of them, Lehman's, for that side. I think he's made 11 centuries, you know.
And he forced his way back into the team, having started out the season in the second 11. And I think that's one of the keys to the success of the team this year is that there's been genuine competition for places in it. I thought that was quite an interesting interview I read with Brendan Doggett, talking about going from Queensland to South Australia and finding, just how different the culture was there. How there was a bit of a defeatist mentality. It reminded me of a story that Ray Lindwall told about when he moved from New South Wales to Queensland. Of course, New South Wales used to absolutely dominate the Sheffield Shield. It was a surprise when anyone else won it. But Lindwall moved up to Queensland for business reasons. And he played his first Shield game against New South Wales, and he took a 5 for. And he comes in, decides to put his feet up and watch Queensland reply, and he sits down and the openers go out, and there are 5 guys with pads on sitting in the Queensland dressing room. Oh, I'm not in New South Wales anymore.
No, Ryan Harris has been saying that all summer. The self-belief was the one thing that he really had to work on with that South Australian team. And they've come through for him, haven't they? Henry Hunt's had a great season. Lehman, who we've mentioned, had a great season. Alex Carey, who will be playing in the final as well, has had a good season for them. McSweeney has contributed.
And our erstwhile colleague Andrew Faulkner was singing Henry Hunt's praises the other night. Apparently Kensington Cricket Club had a chicken and chips night, and who was afterwards helping to clean up? But Henry Hunt. Good man, really? Henry Hunt. It's a name you can trust, isn't it, Henry Hunt?
Yeah, it has a ring to it.
A bit like George Bailey. A bit like George Bailey. It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey. I've always thought that he's the kind of guy who you could, a solid tradesman's name.
Henry and George are good names, aren't they? I'm surprised Faulkner's at a chicken and chips night. Faulkner doesn't eat chicken. Unless he's changed.
He was, obviously he was contributing to the common weal. G'day, Forky. How are you? Hope you've done well. He had a good, strong finish to the season. Congratulations.
I robbed Lehman of 100. He's made 12 Shield centuries, 3 of them this season.
One of the interesting...
Was it 3? Oh, yeah.
I noticed that South Australia is now just South Australia. They're no longer the Redbacks. For some reason, I hadn't caught up with that, and I noticed that that now Victoria has retired the Bushrangers. I think WA has retired the Warriors. Queensland, they are still the Bulls.
Of course, they're still the Bulls.
They were the first in. They were the first in, and they're the last out. What does that tell you about Queensland? Early adopters, slow changes.
What happens next year at Queensland? Can Usman stay there after they've done that?
It's a good question, Pete.
Because, one assumes that Usman Khawaja is going to play next summer.
Yes.
If he does, he's going to need a first-class base. Mm-hmm. He'll need to play a few games for Queensland. Yeah. I wonder if he'll have to have smoked the peace pipe with Joe Dawes.
Well, they're 2 grown men. They love cricket. They've got Queensland cricket's best interests at heart, I would hope. I think it would be, if their interests could align, even if their personalities don't, that's a good thing for the team because obviously the breakdown in their relationship is highly disruptive and won't help Queensland going into this game. But let's see. Let's see what they're capable of.
Have you ever been in a team with someone you had a relationship like that with?
Look, I'm lucky.
You're in
I
a
reckon.
club with teams.
I have.
with people
Look,
like that.
I have. Look, it's surprising. I've been 32 years a player at the Yarras, and I don't think there's a single player who I wouldn't play with again. I've got on with some better than others, but in the main, I think because in an amateur sporting environment, people are there because they want to be. They're putting other things to one side. They're saying this is the way on which I want to spend my weekends and my Tuesday and Thursday nights. If it's unpleasant for whatever reason, you tend not to play. Very different in a professional environment where people are playing for a variety of different reasons with a variety of different levels of ambition and abilities and stages of their career. And of course, at first class level, they're in competition with one another to go to the next level.
That's
so
right.
It's a
different group, isn't it?
Competitive as well as a cooperative environment. So there are many more potential tensions because livelihoods are on the line.
I really liked that line that Tim Payne gave me the other day when I was writing about the piece about Sid's retiring during the week. He's retired since our last pod, I think. We should have mentioned that.
Yeah, we should.
Where you don't last 20 years in cricket if you're a dickhead.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it was Freddie Jakeman from Nottinghamshire once said, out of every 100 cricketers, there are 2 cunts. And if we can't look after our 2 cunts, then we're a pretty poor game. And I reckon that's actually been a pretty reliable rule of thumb for cricket in my experience.
I have on boring days in the press box toyed with the other journalists, and you've probably been in the vicinity with the Shit Blokes 11.
Oh, no.
World Shit Blokes 11. Maybe we won't do it right now, but there's a couple of walk-up starts, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. If you're listening and you've got any ideas, get on the website. Go to Cricket NL and tell us who your Shit Blokes 11 is.
Speaking of mingled environments and players coming from hither and yon, the IPL has begun. Pete, have you been catching up with any of the overnight results?
Oh,
some of them have been pretty extraordinary, actually.
Well, it looked pretty interesting last night. This Ashutosh Sharma.
Yep.
What's
the
going
impact
on
player.
there? But this was an impact player. This is weird. This stuff.
Well, this was a game with quite a lot of interest because it was JL and Mitch Marsh at Lucknow against Starkey and Fraser McGurk at Deccan Chargers, but they all had to stand to one side because this guy's come in at 5 for 65, chasing over 200, and he's the impact player, and he's absolutely blown them away and ended up taking them to victory in the final over. He's 26 years old. He's from Madhya Pradesh, which doesn't actually have an IPL team. He's from a little town called Ratlam, which is a railway town, Pete. I know that will inspire instant affinity for you because I know what a strong railway man you are.
Well, that's how I know him. He made the fastest 50 ever off 11 balls for Railway against Arunachal Pradesh. Railways is my favourite team, Gideon. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he had a 4-year kind of exile from Madhya Pradesh. Couldn't get a game for them. Finally got picked up last season by the Punjab Kings.
Yeah, as an impact player.
As an impact player.
Base rate, wasn't it? He didn't get paid.
Exactly. But I mean, these are the great stories of IPL, aren't they? Players who come from nowhere, players who come from obscurity, and find a particular skill. And he managed this chase superbly last night. I guess in circumstances like that, it's not like you can manage a chase. You've really just got to hit every second ball for 6 if you possibly can. But they needed 94 off 42 with 4 wickets in hand. The Cricket Info's win predictor gave them a 1.5% chance of winning. I don't know how they calculate that, but he's got them there. I mean, it was a great last over actually. The first ball from Shabazz Ahmed, it's a beautiful, classic left arm spinner's ball, beats the outside edge, and Rishabh Pant muffs the stumping. Could have won the game for them that night. Now Pant's had a terrible night because he made a duck off 6 and he's missed the crucial catch. Anyway, they get a single off the next ball, and Ashutosh, as you say, hits the next ball straight down the ground.
Very important
for
single.
6.
Very important single.
Very
that
important
one.
single.
Pushed it through, didn't he?
Yep.
Well,
now, did you watch the Sunrisers Hyderabad Rajasthan Royals game?
But before we move away,
this
impact player thing kind of interests me, isn't it? Like you can, and he's clearly an example of it. We got a suggestion of it with Tim David. Who was basically just made himself a T20 specialist. Yeah. Although he's got more of the all-round game. But this Sharma bloke, he only bats. He doesn't have to field. He doesn't have to bowl. He doesn't have to do anything. Yeah. He just shows up and they say, put your pads on, mate. We need you. And he's like freaking Superman. He just goes out there and hits them as far as he can. Yeah. And he got a lot of money.
He did.
I like it and I don't like it, Gideon.
I have
just like call in the slogger.
I do have a bit of a thing about cricket being an 11-a-side game, and it is peculiar, isn't it, to the IPL? And nowhere else has the impact player, but it is kind of what it's designed to do is exactly what it did last night. It's to revive a team that looks as though it's out of the game. Because a lot of T20 games can fade away to nothingness when the top batsmen are dismissed. You can end up watching 10 overs of tail enders push the ball around. So it's a second chance at life, isn't it? It's the opportunity the team gets to cheat the gallows. A lot of the time, the impact player doesn't have all that much impact, but in circumstances like this, where the player is kind of designed to do that. It can conjure something out of nothing.
Yeah. I noticed that Marsh made 72 off 36 balls last night.
Yes,
did he hit the first ball from Stark for 6? Something like that. He took Stark down, didn't he? Actually had a bit of fun there. But Starkey ended up getting a few wickets from memory. 3 for 42, actually. But I did like Marsh's comment at the end of it that made me think about the impact play. He said, life's good. I'm not bowling. He said, she paid $653,000 Australian dollars, presumably to bat and bowl, but he's still getting his whole wage just for batting.
If there were impact players in the Sheffield Shield, if there were impact players in the Sheffield Shield, probably Peter Siddle would still be playing. Because I think it was fielding in the end that got him down, wasn't it? He was found himself in the outfield one day saying, what am I doing here? I'd rather be bowling. I'd rather be doing something.
Well, the Sheffield Shield's clearly not ready for impact players given the Usman Khawaja experience.
But now, Pete,
did you see the Kohli felicitation? Sorry, I want to go back to the start. Did you see Kohli get felicitated?
Just describe the felicitation, Pete, because we both love a felicitation.
No, it was... I didn't see it. I read about it.
Well, they're not highlights.
That's why I'm asking you if you saw it.
I didn't see it. But and frankly, we do only watch the highlights. We have to be frank. But frankly, these days, if you watch the highlights, it's as good as watching a game. So I've watched the highlights of the Sunrisers Hyderabad Rajasthan Royals game. I've actually ended up seeing 384 out of the 497 runs that have been scored off the bat and all the wickets. So it's a bit like watching a Netflix series on fast forward, isn't it? There were 36s. There were 36s hit in the game. That's 180 runs out of 528. So more than a third of the runs and 51 fours. That's 204 in fours. So I feel like I've virtually watched the game. I certainly feel like I've watched Jofra Archer's spell, in which he's gone for 10 fours and 4 sixes. But I noticed that Pat Cummins went for 5 sixes as well in that game. It's an absolute carnage, that game. The Sunrisers got to 200 with 5 overs to go, and they added another 286. And we're now talking about, well, the day is coming where someone breaks 300 in a 20-over game. And how will we feel about that, Pete? How will we feel about it?
Yeah, how will we feel about it, Gideon? Yeah. It's just watching balls go over the fence all night. It is.
Getting a sore neck watching them soar.
I used to watch SBS movies, and you'd wade through those 4-hour European films just for the bit where they take their clothes off and do that stuff. Back in the day where you never got to see people take their clothes off and do that stuff.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
But IPL's essentially the porn version of cricket, isn't it? Like it's just fucking. I mean, they walk in, they say hello, they don't even bother to say hello. They just take their clothes off and they get down to it.
That's it. It would be easier to watch the the dot balls, wouldn't it? That would be a shorter highlights package.
We should do the anti-IPL coverage where we package up every dot ball in the IPL, every dropped catch, every boring bit. Did you see the bloke prostrate himself? Do you prostate or prostrate? I can't remember.
I think you prostrate yourself. I hope so.
You prostrate yourself, yeah.
Go on.
He prostrated himself in front of Coley on the field, touched his shoes. It was very touching. Yeah. Anyway,
I tell you what you could watch is some of the fielding in the IPL. It's absolutely shocking. The catching, the ground fielding, the diving over the balls on the boundary. Really, it's just not of the highest. It's just not of the standard that you would expect. The catch
be part of our extended lowlights package, Gideon.
Well, the CS Sharma catch dropping Quentin de Kock in the first game, the KKR ICB game. I mean, that was just catastrophic, and the look on his face afterwards was almost worth capturing. But anyway, look, don't rely on us for IPL. No. I mean,
if you can't, go to Grade Cricketer. They're very good on IPL,
doing an excellent job because they've got someone who's watching it.
Love your work, fellas.
They've got an impact player watching the IPL for them.
Don't say that. Well, Dhoni's out again this year. 43 years old.
43 years old. He
doesn't play any other cricket, but he turns up for the IPL.
He's like the impact player. He's like the impact player of impact players, isn't he?
Because players from other nations, of course, will just go from tournament to tournament. And so David Warner can play till he's 63. Yeah. But being Indian, he can't do that, can he?
No. I reckon that's really hard to do. I do think that's quite remarkable. That when you even Shane Warne towards the end of his career, when he was only playing the IPL and the BBL, you could tell the currents were ebbing, because it's just such a demand. Maybe because the skills that he was pursuing were so demanding. But there was a kind of an atrophy. There was a kind of a visible decline. But somehow, Dhoni seems to know what to do and when to do it to this very day.
Yeah, well, he's always been sort of, the master of the of the chase, hasn't he? He's always controlled the chase at every level. But to keep up that skill level, and I saw a stat the other day that he has got the best 6 ratio of any batter in the past 2 years in the IPL. Is
that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And he's got the aura too. He's got the aura. Oh, yeah. I mean, the experience of playing alongside MS Dhoni must be.
They all love it.
They must walk a foot taller, mustn't they?
Yeah, and apparently he's a great team guy. First to training, last to leave, all that sort of bullshit, and just absolutely cool. That's the thing about Dhoni, isn't it? The facial expression rarely changes, is it? No matter what the state of the game. Yep. No, I've always been a big fan. I preferred him when he cut his hair off. I was a bit uncomfortable with the long-haired incarnation of Dhoni.
That's a long time ago now.
Well, that was immediate post that first T20 win, wasn't it, in the World Cup? He had the long hair and he was the superstar.
I warmed to him when he got the salt and pepper, actually. I love that.
Did you?
Yeah. Yep. As a fellow greybeard.
I liked him more, even more, after visiting Ranchi. It's a unique part of the world. It sort of told you a little bit about him.
And of course, another railways cricketer, Pete. Another railway cricketer, wasn't he?
Worked
a ticket
on the railways.
He did.
Ticket collector. Ticket collector. Hey, I mentioned Warner. He's been appointed. He's not playing the IPL. Is this the first ever? Is this the first ever? No, it's not the first one without David, because
he was suspended.
They dumped him when he was suspended, didn't they, for a season?
Yeah.
But he's taken up with Karachi Kings and been appointed captain.
Indeed.
Which is good. 7 years after the ban. Did you know that yesterday was the 7th anniversry of Sandpapergate?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to know that either, but an Adelaide radio station, an Adelaide radio station rang me to ask me about, bring up all those unpleasant memories 7 years after. Yeah. 7 years after, we still don't know what happened, but anyway, maybe one day we will, or maybe it'll be a bit like the JFK assassination, and
the more information we get, the less we know.
That's where I'm at with that one, and also joining him over there Gideon, is Alex Carey, who's been brought in as an impact player. No, a partial replacement for Islamabad. He's replacing Rassie van der Dussen or somebody that.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Alex Carey's. I reckon he's moving into the position of being one of my favourite Australian cricketers. He went over to the MLC last year. He got picked up to do it. I said, how'd you go? He said, fantastic, mate. He said, basically paid training camp. Did not face a ball in the competition.
Cricketers love that, don't they?
Went to training and went to the games and then cashed the cheque. And he'll be doing similar for Islamabad. That starts on when, Gideon? When does it start?
You're all
April
over this.
11. April 11.
Okay. Yep.
So David's got to stay here to play. Yeah,
and being swallowed up by the IPL. So it's kind of a shadow IPL, isn't it, this season?
It is a shadow IPL, but I think we've mentioned this before. I think it's worked well for them. It's counterintuitive, but to put yourself up against the IPL, there's a shitload of really good players who don't get to be in the IPL.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you're not up against all those other leagues, which they were in their previous window.
What's happening with Corbin Bush at the moment?
I wondered what had happened to Corbin Bush because they were going to sue him, weren't they, for taking up an IPL contract.
He has made a statement saying it's nothing personal, guys, but, there's a lot of money involved.
It's financial, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I guess you've got to kind of reconcile yourself to that if you are the PSL. The IPL is the biggest game in town.
Yep.
But, I mean, it's, the IPL always gets fussed about players withdrawing at the last minute. They impose heavy bans. Can Pakistan afford to impose a ban on a player who pulls out the last minute to take up a better offer? Probably not.
No, I don't think that they can do that. But good luck to them. But yeah, so that starts April 11 because David's in town this Friday to play at the golf day. You should come down, Gideon. Bring your clubs.
Yep. You were planning to
don't. There's no places left. I don't think we've sold them all. Yeah.
Tell us about the Chapel Foundation Golf Day, Pete.
The Chapel Foundation Golf Day is this Friday. Did we speak about this last week? It's at the Capital Golf Course, which of course was Kerry Packer and what was the other guy's name?
Lloyd Williams.
Lloyd Williams.
Yeah.
Essentially their private golf course. Ostensibly bought for the whales who are the high rollers at the casino so that they could play. They built this fantastic course out opposite it's not Essendon Airport out there, it's Moorabbin Airport. That's the busiest airport in the Southern Hemisphere, Gideon.
Really?
Moorabbin Airport. Did you know that? Yeah, that's where all the training flights leave from. You should take your daughter out there for some training flights.
Yep.
What was I going to say? So yeah, they had this golf course out there. It's a fantastic course, but no one plays on it. I think one year there they had an average of 4 players a day on this 18-hole golf course.
And
it's that exclusive.
No one's allowed to play on it. Yeah.
But the very kind people who run Capital now have given it to the Chapel Foundation to raise money on Friday, and we'll be playing down there. Warner's going to play. Warner's bringing the beer. Actually,
right.
So he's bringing his golf clubs and the beer.
Does he play right-handed or left-handed?
Going to play. He plays right-handed because they only had right-handed clubs when he was a kid.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that Scott Boland will be there as well.
Excellent.
Apparently, a very good golfer, Scott Boland.
People are so unfairly talented, aren't they? So unfairly talented. Now,
all these people. Yeah.
Another Chapel Foundation gig coming up, Pete, which you wrote about the other day, which is the Chapel Foundation dinner. Would you like to talk us through that?
Do you want me to talk about that before the break or after the break, Gideon?
Yeah, let's wait. You've whetted my appetite now. Let's talk about it after the break. We're back in a moment on Cricket et al. We're back on Cricket et al. Pete, you wrote yesterday on Cricket et al. The Substack about your favourite cricketer, and it just so happens that he is going to be attending the Chapel Foundation dinner. So talk us through the Chapel Foundation dinner, and let's have a bit of a chat about DK.
Well, Dennis is coming down. The Chapel Foundation's dinner is on in Sydney at the SCG on April 30. It's cricket's night of nights. You've attended previously, Gideon.
I have.
It's quite the thrill, the start of that evening, to actually start out on the grass having a drink as the sun sets behind the members' stand. Beautiful sight. And then we go upstairs and Dennis is going to chat. It's always a good night, and I'm thrilled that Dennis is coming over from Western Australia. He doesn't do much anymore.
No, he doesn't.
He never really did a lot, actually, post-cricket, Dennis, but he commentated for a while, didn't he? I heard him commentating somewhere the other day.
Yeah.
In England, wasn't it?
Not a natural, but in some ways you didn't want the effect to be spoiled. I think Dennis has actually got a really good relationship with cricket. He's sort of part of this sort of stratospheric or ethereal presence in cricket. He doesn't normally descend to the realm of ordinary mortals.
No, he doesn't. But as you know, he was my childhood hero. I suspect he was yours. Most people my age would have loved Dennis Lillee, wouldn't they?
I loved Rod Marsh. In that generation, I absolutely loved Rod Marsh. Yeah, he was my first the kind of first cricketer that I was really aware of, whose style kind of caught my eye. Two mustachioed Western Australians, of course, and inseparable from one another. I was taken by Rod Marsh's left-handedness, because there weren't many left-handers around in those days. I thought it was fascinating that he faced the wrong way around, and he looked so reliable. He looked so authentic. He looked so of the people. Dennis, of course, had enormous style and brio and theatricality.
He was handsome. He was a rooster.
He was.
I mean, Rod was a kick on legs, wasn't he? He was Booney's dad.
Yeah. But it wasn't like I was a wicketkeeper, but you were a fast bowler, weren't you?
I was, yeah. So all I wanted to be was Dennis. Yeah.
Did you have any of his mannerisms? Did you have that?
Oh yeah. I modelled my entire bowling action on Dennis Lillee's bowling action. It was a facsimile of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do the old flick, sweat flick. I think it was a perfect facsimile of Dennis Lillee until the ball left the hand and began its long, slow journey to the other end of the pitch.
But what about the appeal?
Great up to that moment.
Could you do the appeal
in slow mo?
Could you do the appeal?
No, I didn't. I must admit, I didn't do the appeal. That was one of the great appeals in cricket, wasn't it?
Yeah, up there. And he also did the pointing straight at the umpire, which I thought was fearsome, terrifying. How would you say no to a man like that?
You, mate, that is out. Yeah. And he would get cranky if the decisions, he could get cranky if decisions didn't go his way, didn't he? My father disapproved of Dennis and that era of Australian cricketers. He thought that they were larrikins and that they set a bad example.
Yep.
They were certainly, styled themselves as sort of anti-establishment cricketers, didn't they? Yeah, I mean, Ian led the way, Ian Chappell.
You remember the Melbourne Test match in '76 against Pakistan, where he was warned for bowling too many bounces, and he, if I remember rightly, he picked up a balloon that had wafted across the ground, and he shaped to throw it underarm. Sort of shit that you would just never get away with now.
Greg Chappell tells a great story about when Dennis batted with the aluminium bat.
Oh yeah,
and just sitting there going, oh no. And I think was Hoggy the 12th man, and I think he sent Hoggy out with wooden bats and said, "Tell Dennis to use these." And of course, Hoggy was nearly killed by a flying aluminium bat, went sailing across the top of his head.
Didn't Dennis come back into the change room and he was going to accept a wooden bat? And didn't Rod say something like, "You're not going to let them tell you what to do"? And this sort of complete change came over Dennis's face, and he went, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not."
Yeah.
Anyway, these and other stories.
We had one. We had an aluminium bat at Strathdale Maristians. In the kit. Yeah, it was a piece of shit. Absolute piece of shit.
Terrible.
They were terrible.
And really thin. really thin and tinny.
Yeah. No substance to them at all. And took away that sound of cricket.
Yes, yeah.
It just didn't sound like cricket when people were batting with an aluminium bat. I didn't like it. I was with Dad there. I was a traditionalist on that one. Thought Dennis might have gone a bit too far then, but he's a lovely bloke. If you've ever had time,
a great guy.
Spend time with Dennis in a social setting, he's a great guy. And so I've written at length on my love of Dennis on the Cricket et al. Website today. I've got the letter here, Gideon, on my desk.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Yeah,
that should be under glass, Pete.
Well, it's actually it was in a photo album. It's an old photo album.
Right.
Yeah, which was in a box, which was in a flood. But anyway, that's all right, I think. And there, behind me is the T-shirt. See the Dennis Lillee T-shirt?
Yeah.
That my mum hung on to for years. She must have had that like for 3 decades in a cupboard at home. It was the only thing of mine that she didn't throw out, I think. Probably.
Isn't it fantastic to think of Dennis sitting down and writing that letter? Did you send a stamped self-addressed envelope? That was what you usually did in those days.
No, I didn't. He actually personally addressed the envelope to me because it was the same pen and handwriting as inside. And I'm a bit distressed to see that the envelope doesn't exist anymore. It used to be just there. I don't know where it's gone.
Yeah.
It might be in my drawer somewhere.
Uncanny, isn't it? To think that players once received... You sent it to the whacker, didn't you? So I imagine...
I did. I addressed it to the whacker.
I imagine the whacker put together a sort of a sack of mail, gave it to Dennis, and Dennis would have gone through each one individually and sent a reply. Amazing to think that players actually used to do that.
Yeah, and it meant a lot to me at the time. I was so thrilled. I can't quite make out the date. I think it's the 6th of March, 1975. It's certainly March 1975. Dear Peter, I'm only too happy to give you my autograph, and I hope you keep up your interest in cricket as it has many rewards in life, Gideon Haigh. Many rewards in life.
That's just superb, isn't it? Who knew?
Prescient, wasn't it? Prescient.
The nearest I come to that is I wrote a letter to Alan McGilvray when he picked his all-time best Australian 11 in the National Times. And
this is the former commentator for people who don't know. Yeah.
And he left out Victor Trumper.
Legendary.
And now I wasn't going to stand for that. He had Ponsford and Morris opening for Australia, and I said, you just can't pick an Australian team without Victor Trumper. So I wrote him a letter, care of the National Times, and he replied. He typed his letter. Actually, I've still got it somewhere. He had terrible typing.
Did he dictate it?
No, only
it was his typing.
It was his typing. It was error strewn, and he put at the bottom of it, "P.S. with apologies for my typing." Great days.
Did you ever meet him?
Days.
I met him.
I
interviewed him when I was a young reporter.
Right.
Yeah, he put out that book, The Game's
He's Not the Same. Yep.
And I went to interview him at the Southern Cross Hotel in Melbourne.
Yeah.
I think the publicist had arranged for Devonshire tea.
Beautiful.
But he wasn't having any of that, and he ordered a whiskey.
Yep.
So...
Did you get him in the morning or the afternoon?
It was a morning whiskey. We had a morning whiskey. I was about 14. Nonetheless, he was fond of a whiskey.
He was.
McGilvray.
Great man.
Anyway, so that is, if you're doing nothing and you're in Sydney on April 30, come to the SCG for that dinner. It's a fantastic night. It is great fun.
Okay.
What else is going on in cricket? Hey, have I mentioned Mitch Owen's bat?
Tell me about Mitch Owen's bat, Pete. It's a great story.
I am very excited. I was very excited to read this morning, Gideon, that the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery, located in Hobart, has acquired the bat which Mitch Owens used to win the Big Bash final.
Yep.
That's how much that innings means to Hobart, to Tasmania as a whole. You remember, I think he hit 11 sixes. It was a 39-ball 100. Second fastest or equal fastest, was it?
Equal fastest in BBL,
Fastest in a final. But, changed the destiny of a state, really. So that Gray Nichols bat is going in there. It may find a place alongside the Jack Jumpers jersey that they also have in their collection, from the inaugural season of the Jack Jumpers.
So has he actually presented the bat, or has he promised the bat?
Yeah.
So
he's presented the bat.
He has presented the bat. Can he get it back if he wants it? Because if you've made runs with a bat, it's a lucky bat. I wouldn't do that lightheartedly if I was him.
I think he might be well advised to do that, and perhaps he could just take it out. Perhaps he could just take it out for game day, because the curator has said, that it's actually going into storage. It's not on display. So I reckon he could knock on the back door every Saturday morning and say, I'm playing this weekend. Can I have the bat back, please? Have you got a lucky bat this summer?
I'm just using the same crappy bat that I've used for the last few years. But you did make me think of probably one of the most soul-stirring experiences I've had was when I got to pick up one of Victor Trumper's bats, which is in the National Museum. And it was actually not just a Victor Trumper bat, it was the bat that W.G. Grace had given to Victor Trumper in 1899 and had signed it to Victor Trumper with best wishes, W.G. Grace. Now, I don't reckon there can be
about this.
I did mention it in the in my book about Victor Trumper. It's an amazing item because it was evidently used. This was not a souvenir bat. This was not a token.
No.
This was a bat that was very heavily used, perhaps by both of them, and it had this fantastic concavity in the middle of the bat. The middle had been used so incessantly and so effectively that the whole middle of the bat had been pushed back in. It was so that the face of it had delaminated. So you got a feeling for just how good these players were. That they'd worn this bat out by the impact and the power of their stroke.
And that would be like making an impression on a stone, like on a step, because those bats are hard pressed, aren't they? They're not soft like the bats of today.
They are very hard. And amazingly, it's not on display, once again, at the National Museum. I actually had to go and make an appointment to go to their warehouse in Canberra to look at it. But, when the curator showed it to me, I said, "Can I hold it?" And they said, "No reason why not." And it was
gloves? White gloves?
No, they didn't force me to wear gloves. And of course, Victor Trumper did not wear gloves. So I got the authentic Victor Trumper experience of holding the bat. He didn't even like rubber handles on his bat.
Oh, really?
He used to hold them. Wood. He liked the feeling of the string around the cane. Yeah.
Right.
He was like a violinist in touch with his instrument. Anyway, it was a great experience.
The Ricky Ponting kahuna that I came into possession of has only one major indentation. It's on the side here, up near the splice. I suspect that was made in anger.
Yeah,
I must ask him about that. That looks like it's actually got a bit of, like, there is a seam there, but I don't know how a cricket ball could do that in normal circumstances.
Yeah.
It looks like he smashed it down, perhaps on a cricket ball on a table or something. I think he was the king of the blow-ups in the dressing room, Ricky. Do you remember when he smashed that television in a T20 tournament?
Yeah. In the World Cup, actually, I think. Was
that in Sri Lanka?
I think it was in India, actually.
That's right.
His bat bounced, I think, and hit the TV.
It wasn't his bat. It was his protector.
It was his protector, the titanium protector.
He threw it out and threw it across the room. Of course, who wants a teammate who's throwing their protector across the room? That's just plain unhygienic and dangerous.
Is that in the museum in Tasmania, the punter's titanium protector, which killed the television?
Lockie Patterson, I think, was the media officer for Australian cricket at that time, and I wasn't on that tour, but he just played it down, said it was a massive beat up, that there was a small mark on the side of the screen. That was in the days, when those big screen TVs were worth a lot of money and stuff. But India wasn't having that. And now Amanda Hodge, the Indian correspondent for The Australian, fantastic journo. I love Amanda. And she would not let that story go, and she tracked the TV down and got them to plug it in and turn it on. And it was fucked. It was a seriously fucked television. Ricky had really done some damage to that. So sorry, Lockie Patterson.
The TV's probably in some Indian museum.
We don't believe you. I keep running into cricket et al. Fans. I was at Kneecap the weekend before last, and I ran into Liam from Brisbane. Hello, Liam, if you're listening. I was walking down, I was in Marrickville on Saturday and paused at the Palestinian rally outside Anthony Albanese's office and ran into Cian, which is like Ian with a C, who's also an enormous fan of the podcast, one of your biggest fans, Gideon.
Indeed,
but nice the highlight of my last week has been bumping into a gaggle of Kiwis at the Marrickville Bowling Club, among which all the men profess to be fans of cricket et al. So, and it was a great day. These people, like, I'm sitting at a table outside where they play bowls, just by myself doing the New York Times puzzle. And this girl comes over and says, "Oh, come use your seats." And I said, "Yeah, all right." And they sat down. They were pretty friendly and chatty. You know what Kiwis are like. The girls just start chatting. Yeah. And then the boys come. And I said, "Well, what's going on here?" And they're all just random Kiwis. I mean, there were couples, among them. But they're random Kiwis who'd got together and decided to have an afternoon together in Sydney. So they come to do the Inner West Ale Trail. And then they booked, and then they wanted to play bowls at the Marrickville Bowling Club. They couldn't play bowls. So they ended up leading me astray. I was meant to go home and cook dinner, and I ended up doing shots with them at the bar. People who were younger than my children, Gideon.
Now,
anyway,
speaking of,
I got the dinner cooked eventually.
Speaking of random Kiwis, so I let listeners in on the last podcast about my strange and unexpected affinity for MAFS. On which I might say last night. Yeah, Dodgy Paul got caught out going on a covert date last night and couldn't spin it despite his cheesy bogan French accent. Jackie's thrown herself on Ryan's mercies after he finally cracked it, although we all know that's doomed because on social media Jackie's fallen for Clint with his hair plugs and his dead eyes. But did you know, Pete, that John Aitken, one of the expert panel on MAFS, is a former first-class cricketer from New Zealand. He played 46 first-class matches and 39 one-day matches in a career spanning 11 seasons from 1989-90 to 2000-2001 and scored 2,170 first-class runs at an average of 28.93. So,
what's his role on the show?
He's one of the experts. He's trained as a psychologist. He gives relationship advice. So, needless to say, I cannot let the overlap between MAFS and cricket go unexplored. So I've written to John Aitken and I've invited him on Cricket et al. So John, if you're out there listening, have a look
past me first.
It's a Hail Mary, and I understand that John Aitken is very, very busy, but I do want to explore the overlap between cricket and relationships.
Oh well, I might have some questions for you actually.
Indeed,
yeah.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Yeah. So watch this space, we've got Cricket et al. Listeners.
And real cricket, have you been watching? I watched a little bit of the women's T20. They're 2-0 up over New Zealand at the moment. Annabelle Sutherland had a great game.
Yes.
I thought she was. I think she's going to be Australia's best ever female cricketer.
She's amazing, isn't she? She's an absolute prodigy. And she can do anything. She looks like an Elise Perry in the making, doesn't she? Just completely dominant, like Elise Perry at her peak. Although interestingly, neither Annabelle nor Talia McGrath had great WPLs, and Annabelle failed in the final when really the Capitals should have chased successfully against the Indians. But it's Australia has asserted its dominance, as you would expect, despite the absence of Ash Garner. There's been developments, hasn't there, in England women's cricket, because both John Lewis, the coach, and Heather Knight, the captain, have stood down. So watch this space as to who succeeds them. Bit of soul searching going on in English women's cricket as a result of their 16-0 defeat during the Ashes. And 16-0 does sound like a very, very abject defeat when you lay it out like that.
John Lewis's observations about the advantages that Australian life gives Australian cricket made for some sensational commentary by the great cricketer. when they were
Yes,
doing
they did.
Was it
They
the
did.
Big Bash that they were commentating? Oh, I wasn't even sure what game they were commentating on, but they were very funny. Remember? Yeah. That had to happen, didn't it?
It did. Pretty much so. But quite some time and quite some effort will be expended in recalibrating women's cricket in England, because it does seem to have gone backwards since their amazing win in 2017, taking out the World Cup.
Backwards?
That promise has not been delivered. Now, Pete, do we have time for a top 10? Do we have time for a top 10?
Top 10?
On Cricket et al?
We've been going for a while, haven't we? Well, no one's probably listening anymore, so we can just keep talking. It doesn't matter.
I guess so.
Have you done a top 10?
I did. Look, I've done 5. We were thinking about 5 songs to celebrate the return of the IPL.
I've done 6.
You've done 6. Okay. Well, look, let's go
one
for
will
it.
drop off. Well, that's a bad sign, because I think I was unhappy. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, go for it. Do you want to go first?
Well, I was thinking "Wave of Mutilation" by the Pixies as I watched watched the SRH Royals game the other night. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of "It's Just a Flesh Wound, Darling" by Melbourne band EXEK when I was watching Jofra Archer go for 76 runs from 4 overs in that highlight reel. That was ugly, wasn't it? I think Heady was responsible for some of them. Head took him for 23 in 1 over, didn't he?
There was just seemed nowhere safe to bowl that night.
Yeah.
You know, he bowled full, he bowled short, he bowled slower. He bowled one side of the wicket, he bowled the other side of the wicket. I mean, I don't think he's particularly wrapped in being there. He was a last-minute inclusion in the auction, wasn't he? Because of the prospect of, if he didn't sign up for the auction, he'd be out for 2 years. So I don't think he's hugely enthusiastic. He was, So look, it stands to reason, doesn't it, that some players will be more excited about being at the IPL than others. And if I was Jofra Archer, I'd feel even less enthusiastic about it about now.
It's Just a Flesh Wound, Darling. Look it up. It's on Exec's album. Very good band. EXEK.
Watching the very, very excited Indian crowds did put me in mind of that great fall song as an expression of sporting allegiance, "We Are Sparta FC." Great song.
It is a very good song, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was looking at those, these new rules they have about, if you pull out, you're banned for 2 years, and if you pull out of the IPL. So I thought, "Bondage Up Yours" by X-Ray Specs.
Polystyrene's finest hour.
Yeah, but I've always been intrigued by the saxophone sound on that song, because you don't get a lot of sax in songs. I mean, although I do know the new Viagra Boys, they always have saxophone, but it was played by a girl called Lara Logic, who was, I think, 15 at the time or 16. Wow. She went in to the audition because your mate Polystyrene had put an ad in NME or somewhere. Yeah, didn't actually pick up an instrument. The band manager said, we need another girl, you're in. Right. What can you do? She said, I play saxophone. She played sax. I think she appeared on the album but wasn't credited and had left the band soon after. She became a Hare Krishna.
Well.
She went on. She played on other songs with other bands. Who was that band that I was just trying to think of? Oh, Swell Maps. She played on the Swell Maps.
Great band.
Yeah. So she contributed to a few other things, but then a little bit like Polystyrene, who died young, died at the age of 53, unfortunately. She gave it all up. She said, I've done too many drugs, too much rock and roll, and she went and became a Hare Krishna. And get this, I've become a Hare Krishna too. She got to live in George Harrison's old mansion.
Right.
The one that he gave the Hare Krishnas.
Indeed, just near Mike Atherton's place.
Yeah, nothing to do with cricket at all. Yeah. Bondage up yours. Yeah. Chain store, what is it? Chain store, chain smoke, I consume you all. Chain gang, chain mail, I don't think at all. Thrash me, crash me, beat me till I fall. I want to be a victim for you all. Oh, bondage, up yours.
Somewhere I've actually got a copy of Germ-Free Adolescence, but probably under the stairs somewhere. Yeah.
I've got a copy of the single over there. It's not in a picture sleeve, but it's still, I love it. It's such an important song Very important song. What year was that? 76, 78? I don't know.
78, I think. Yeah. Actually, maybe it's in Andrew Faulkner's forthcoming book on music in 1979. Another shout out to Forky.
Who knows? Yeah.
I'm going for, heard from Lara Logic No the other day, and Lara Logic No always puts me in mind of The Man Who Sold the World by Nirvana.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
What?
Guess what?
It's on your
Number
list?
3, The Man Who Sold the World, Lara Logic No. Get out of my fucking head.
Two cheeks of the same arse, Pete. I say it all the time.
How on earth did you get to that?
For Corbin Bush, do you have The Cruel Seas Better Get a Lawyer?
No, I'm kind of relieved that I don't, but that's very
make it a good one.
Is that your next one? Well, The Man Who Sold the World, Lara Logic No. That's very good. I'm going with Purple Mountains, the only one. The band only did one album, and then David Berman was dead. But Nights That Won't Happen. It's pretty much the IPL for me. It's a morning sport for me.
Yeah. And I do feel like, I get quite excited at the start of IPL, but my interest does tend to wane. So it put me in mind of that great Dream Syndicate song from Days of Wine and Roses, Tell Me When It's Over.
Huh?
And I don't really know because I don't want to know. Yeah, tell me when it's over. Tell me when it's over. Let me know when it's done.
I'm doing all of this with visual aids today, which is great on a podcast, isn't it? But there is a YouTube version of this podcast. I don't know why you'd want to fucking look at it, but anyway. Can you see that, Gideon?
Flaring.
No, all right, I'll tell you what it is. Apart from the fact that it's in Cricket et al. Punk Pink, Ash Wednesday's Love by Numbers, originally sold around the corner from you at Readings Records for $2.50 in 1980. Costs a little bit more than that now, I might add.
There's something about having the old price tag on a record, isn't there?
I love it.
Isn't it brilliant?
Yeah, and I like it when it has the name of the record store as well. You know, like Rash's Music, Chatswood, or something like that. And you can just imagine that person going in to buy the single.
On my handmade Hex Induction Hour by the Fall phone cover, it's my own copy of the album. So you've got the $12.99 price tag on it.
Oh, really?
Best $12.99 I ever spent.
So, Love by Numbers, for those who don't know, is a song where Ash counts to 100, interrupted only in the middle by a chorus where a girl called Karen Marks sings, "Ooh, ooh, it must be love, ooh, ooh, it must be love." And then Ash gets back, 53, 54, 55. Some good guitar by Bob Kretschmer. Now, Bob Kretschmer, you might know, he started off with Ash in the Metronomes and in that early, that early sort of model setup. I don't think he was in that. But then he went on to be a key member of Icehouse in their early years.
Right.
He was one of the sort of alternative Melbourne musicians who really did well for himself. And Johnny Crash plays drums on that album, by the way.
I saw
another early model, was in the early models.
I actually saw our models reunion in 1998 in the Gershwin room where Ash played keyboards rather than Andrew Duffield. And he had an amazing keyboard sound, quite unlike any other keyboard sound I've ever heard.
Really? Yeah. I'm trying to think of where I've heard him play over the years. I was going to say, did he play in the early Sacred Cowboys? Maybe that wasn't him. I think there was another guy. And, did a lot of good music, Ash.
Did a lot of good music.
The models are touring again. And get this, they're supporting
I've got tickets.
Crash
I've got tickets.
Get out.
I've got tickets. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm very excited.
When did Boom Crash Opera get bigger than the models?
Yeah, they're calling it the double A side tour.
Oh,
so I'm not actually sure who plays first, and I'm probably not going to stay for Boom Crash Opera if I'm completely honest. So
not
I'm
a big
hoping
fan
the
of
models play first.
Ooh, onion skin, kick it out, kick it in.
No,
Pete,
but I'm excited about seeing the models again. Always excited about seeing the models. So yeah,
who's
I've got
in the models
tickets
at the moment? Gideon, is
I
Mark Ferry still with them?
Yeah, I think Ferry would still be playing. Duffield and Kelly, the classic lineup. That would do me. They sounded great the last time I heard them. I'm sure they'll be great when I hear them next.
Just for those who are watching on YouTube, I showed this to Gideon before. Look at that. This is another single I got this week. John Kennedy, is it? John Kennedy's Love Gone Wrong. Big country with the Australia stencil on the front, the brown Australian stencil.
3D record cover. Yeah.
Well, it was glued on by hand. I read
but
about
no
this.
Tasmania.
For, Red Eye Records. Ah, you know what?
Yeah.
Tassie's not there, is it? Maybe they hadn't discovered Tasmania back then. It's fallen off. Oh, there it is. It's on the B-side.
All right, we've strayed a long way from cricket today, folks. It's been a bit of an etale episode, but it's been great to have you with us. Look forward to having your company again, but in the meantime, from Cricket Etale, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.